In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this really cute heart chain bracelet. It's a very simple bracelet, and you can mix and match the colors and make any variation. So to make this, you're going to need two colors. I'm using white and red here, and they are a cotton-based string. You're also going to need some scissors and a piece of tape. So to start off our bracelet, I've cut off 2 strings of red and 2 of white. Now my red is going to be my heart outline and my white is going to be my chain. So for that reason, my white is the longer one. I've got about 200 centimeters of the white and about 160 centimeters length for the red, and then you fold those in half exactly in the middle. Now I have to admit that length is a little bit quite long. So if you only want to make your bracelet quite long, you can use that length, but you could probably decrease it a little bit and it will be fine. So the first step is we're going to start off with our initial loop. So I've taken my white string, it doesn't matter which one, and I've wrapped it across the entirety of the rest of these strings in a lark head knot. And then once I have that first knot in, I'm going to tape it down. And I'm going to start making my first loop now. So I'm going to do 7 backward forward knots with my white string that's kind of going back at the bottom. So because my white string is sticking out from the right, I'm doing backward forward knots. So for you, depending on where your string is kind of sticking out from, you might have to do forward backward knots. And you'll see that I will be making forward backward knots when I do the opposite side real soon. So that's 1 knot. I'm going to do 6 more of these going down my strings. So I've finished my 7 knots now, and I'm going to be doing 7 knots on the other side now. So to make sure that my white string is the exact same length on both sides, I kind of like to do one side and then switch it to the other side and do the rest from the other end. Of course, if you line up your string unevenly, you can just use one end to do all of the 14 knots. But I like this method to kind of just keep the strings even. So I flipped it over to the other side, and now instead of doing backward forward knots, I'm going to do forward backward knots 7 times across. And that's what I was meaning when I was saying that if your string is sticking out from the left side, then you'll have to do forward backward knots. And you can see now that my string is on the opposite end. I'm doing the opposite knot. So I'm going to make 7 of these, so a total of 14 knots plus the lark knot for our initial loop. And I'm just speeding up over here to show you the rest of the knots. Alright, so I finished all my knots, and now you can nicely fold it in, make this U shape, and that starts our first loop. So once you have your U shape nice and set, just tape it underneath a piece of tape, hold it in place so that we can knot the rest of the bracelet. So we're going to start off now with the heart. Now for the heart, we're going to take 1 red string. It doesn't matter which one you take because they're both coming out from the same end now. And we're going to tie a backward forward knot on top of both the red and the white string that is to the left of this red string. That's the backward, and now I'm going to do the forward. And then you're going to do a forward knot between that red and the white string that's from the right side. So just a forward knot on top of that one. Now with the other red, I'm going to take it out and I'm going to do a backwards knot on top of the leftmost white. Now we're going to repeat this, but in the opposite direction for our other side. So again, take one of the reds. And this time we'll do a forward backward knot on top of the red and white. Now I'm going to be making a backward knot on top of the red and the leftmost white. Now if this lingo of forward knot, backward, forward, forward, backward is too confusing for you, I do have a video explaining what these knots are, and that will help you a lot in making these bracelets. And now I'm going to take the red that's in the middle and I'm going to do a forward knot across that red and the white that is to the right of that red. Now at this point, I'm going to bring my two center reds together and I'm going to tie them together. So it could be a forward knot or a backward knot. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to be doing a forward knot between my left and right red. This part, you want to make sure you secure the heart nicely. So you see me over here using my finger to secure that first top part of the knot. As you know, it can come loose easily, so just be patient and make sure you push that knot all the way to the top. Now once you have those two together, you have your beginnings of the heart. You can see the two arches of the heart, and the rest of it is quite simple. So if you've ever done a chevron, it's kind of like a chevron style for the rest of the heart. So I'm going to take my white. I'm starting on the left side. You can start on the right side. It doesn't really matter. And we're just going to do forward knots across all the strings that are to the right of it up to the center red. So that means 2 forward knots between my white and the white first, and then the second one is with the red. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to take my rightmost white and I'm going to do, instead of forward knots, they're going to be backward knots across the white, the red, and also the last white. We're going to connect the two center whites together. So it's going to be 3 backward knots. Now we're going to do a very similar thing, but with the red. So again, chevron style with the red outermost strings. I'm starting off with the left side, doing 3 forward knots between my red and the 3 following strings. Now once we're done with this side, we're gonna go to the red string on the opposite end, and now we're gonna do backward knots, and we'll do 4 backward knots. So we'll do 3 on the strings that are on the right side, and then we're also gonna connect the 2 reds at the center with our 4th knot. And you can see now that you have the shape of the heart. After this, you are done your heart. And now I'm doing my 4th backward knot to connect the last 2 red strings. And of course you can do a forward knot instead, as they're both the same color, so forward or backward will be the same. And now you're done the heart. So to make the chains between the hearts, it's very simple. It's pretty much the exact same as what we did with the loop initially, but this time you're not looping, it's just a straight chain. And so all you have to do is do forward backward knots or backward forward knots, depending on which side you're doing it. So right now I'm doing the right side, so I'm going to be doing 7 backward forward knots on the side. I personally feel like 7 makes the perfect size of loop, but if you want your loop to be longer, you can increase the amount of knots. If you want your loop to be more exaggerated or just longer between each heart. But I feel like 7 for me personally is a really good amount. Of course, that also depends on the thickness of your string. So if your string is much thicker, 7 knots will take up more space, so you might not end up needing all 7. So yeah, gauge your string. If it's the same as mine, 7 should be fine, but if it's too thick or too thin, then you could consider increasing or decreasing that number. So I'm just doing another 7 now on the other side. So because it's on the other side, of course, now they're going to be forward backward knots instead. Now that I have finished both sides, you're basically back to making a second heart now. So I'm just repeating the exact same steps to make my second heart. And the total number of hearts you want to make is really up to you and the length of bracelet that you want. For me personally, I like to do 10 of them. So over here, you see that I have completed all 10 of my hearts and I've gotten the length that I desire. So I'm just going to end off my bracelet by just making some very simple twisted ties. So I'm looking at each side separately. Each side has 2 whites and 2 reds for me. So I have the reds combined and I'm twisting them together. And I'm going to do the same thing for the white. I'm going to twist the 2 whites together. And then I'm going to twist the red and the white in the opposite direction together. And this maintains a good hold between them so that they are not unraveled. Now I continue doing this for the entirety of the length. I try and keep my ends quite long so that they can fit any wrist size. And once you get to the end, you're just gonna tie a knot, and you want to make sure that your knot goes over the twists that you have so that it's nice and secure, it doesn't come undone. Once you have it nicely knotted, you can just cut the end and you are done with your twisted end. And of course, I'm going to repeat the exact same procedure to the second half to have two ends. You want to make sure you clean up your ends. I like to hold my two ends together so that the little cuts I make are the exact same length. At this point, the bracelet is completely done. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I hope you enjoy making these bracelets. Thank you for watching.